Hi, my name is John Kelsey. I'm National Trainer for Hard Hat Industry Solutions. This is a session from Red Rhino Academy, our complete training course in electrical and structured cabling estimating using Red Rhino software. Welcome to our session, Structured Cabling Estimating, Part 3, Recap and Proposal. This session is Part 3 of a 3-part training session. This session was developed specifically for our customers that estimate and installed structured cabling projects. In this session, we cover why and how to use the recap, and how to create a professional proposal using Red Rhino estimating software. There are 3 videos that are prerequisite to watching this video. They are Setting Up Red Rhino, Structured Cabling Part 1, Horizontal and Closet, and Structured Cabling Part 2, Inside Backbone and Outside Plant. This session on structured cabling is more advanced and builds on previous sessions. There is one more video I highly recommend you watch called Using the Recap to Be More Competitive. Training videos are available to Rhino customers on the Red Rhino homepage under Training Videos category. Starting from the Red Rhino homepage, I'll navigate to the estimate shown from previous videos. From the home page, the accordion menu should have Estimate and Proposal menu open by default. I click List Estimates, and Rhino will display the estimates already created. Again, if you've not watched the session called Setting Up Red Rhino, watch that session first. It shows how to create an estimate and how to create sections. I click on the estimate named Structured Cabling, Recap, and Proposal. Now this is the estimate I created to demonstrate using the recap and proposal. As explained in earlier training videos, there are 5 sections in this sample estimate. Section A is horizontal station, Section B is closet build-out, Section C is indoor backbone, Section D is outside plant, Section E is miscellaneous. I've already completed inputting materials into each section and will now demonstrate how to use the recap. Next, I click the Recap button, and it takes us to the Recap page. The Recap displays a summary of the estimate and shows a cost breakdown of the project. Before you send your price to the customer, you review the Recap to evaluate the total costs and labor hours and make adjustments to the estimate as necessary. The purpose of the Recap is to evaluate your estimate. I like to say that the Recap talks to you. The recap tells you how many material dollars there are in the estimate, how many labor hours are in the estimate, the cost of expenses, the prime cost of the project, and so on. It tells you everything about the estimate. Well, let's take a look from the top. At the top right of the page is a red navigation menu you see on most every Red Rhino page. Make sure you click the box labeled Help if you need help. Below the red navigation menu is a header. At the top left of the header are 2 tabs. One tab is called Takeoff Summary, which is the view we're currently viewing. The other tab is Additional Details, to the right there. I will not explain the Additional Details function of the recap. It provides even more comprehensive summary of the estimate. Click on the tab yourself to view additional details and use Red Rhino Help feature if needed. At the top right of the header are 3 buttons. Edit Header button, which we'll discuss shortly, the Proposal RCO button, which is how you navigate to the Proposal menu. We'll discuss the Proposal shortly. Also Back to Estimate button. Next, I'll explain how to edit the header. To edit the header, just click Edit Header button at the top right. That allows you to edit or change the values at the top of the recap. You can edit all the values displayed in the header. Like overhead %, profit %, and tax %. You edit them right here. In this example, you can see the overhead and profit % are both set at 10% each. These values are for instruction only. You'll set the overhead and profit different depending on your estimates. In the tax % box, you type in what % you pay for sales tax in your area. Red Rhino will add sales tax for materials. You can adjust the overhead and profit here, and it changes the markup for the entire estimate. When you change the overhead or profit percentage values, it changes the total price of the bid. Since this estimate is set up to mark up items 10% overhead and 10% profit, Rhino will mark up all labor costs, all materials, expenses, and everything by 10 and 10. Next is a crew composite rate. Crew composite rate is essentially the average cost of labor per hour for the project. In this sample estimate, the crew composite rate is set at $38. That's $38 per hour. Please click on the Help feature for an explanation of how to calculate the crew composite rate. The recap takes the total number of hours in the project times the crew composite rate to calculate the cost of labor in the estimate. More on this in a while. Next is general foreman rate, which is set at $40 per hour. When inputting the general foreman rate, you input the amount of dollars is the cost for 1 hour of general foreman labor. In the box to the right, you input the percentage of general foreman labor hours you want the program to add for general foreman labor. In this example, I set the general foreman percent at 8%. The program will add that percent of general foreman hours to the labor in the estimate. I'll show you more about that in a minute. I left the superintendent rate blank, but if you want to include superintendent labor hours, you'd input the cost per hour of your superintendent in the header here. In a while, I'll show you how you would manually input superintendent hours in each section. If you're required to pay for bonding on the project, you can input the percent at the right here. I set it up for 2.5%. Next, I'm going to click the Save button to save my work. Again, this is where you make changes in the header. Now below the top header is a Takeoff Summary, which displays the total column and the names of the sections to the right. In this estimate, the section names you can see are horizontal, closets, indoor backbone, riser, and so on. The total column displays the total values from all sections combined. In Part 1 and Part 2 videos, we input materials in each section. The values seen in the recap here are a result of that input. Before moving forward, I want to explain something here. Notice to the right of the description of other material cost, there are underlined zeros in each column. Anytime there's an underlined zero on the recap, it's a hyperlink. When you click on the link, it opens a pop-up page where you do input. There are two ways you can approach using the links for input. First, I'll demonstrate how to input in a single section. Then I'll demonstrate how to input in multiple sections from the total column. To input other materials in the closet section, I click on the zero to the right of the description Other Material Cost in the closet column. Click on the zero underlined. Again, it's a link that opens up. A pop-up window appears. It has items listed on the left and a amount box on the right. To change the description, just click in the description box and type in a new description. Just highlight it, type in a new description. I won't do it here, but this is how you do it. To enter the dollar amount, just click in there and type in the dollars. Now, I won't make changes, but I just want to show you how that works moving on. I'll go ahead and click Save and Close to save my work. Next, I'll describe how to do input other materials in all sections simultaneously. I click on the underlined zero in the total column. It opens a pop-up, and it allows me to input here in each section. It has each section listed down this pop-up. I just go into the section that I want to add other materials for, type it in here. Then you click Save and Close to save your work. On the left side of the recap is set up with descriptions logically grouped together. I'll explain the different groups and explain more details on each group. Here we see the material group where material cost and the estimate are displayed. At the top there's material cost, other material cost, total material cost, and sales tax. Next is quoted materials including tax, which I previously showed how to input. So quoted materials there is $11,734. In order to see what was input there, I just click on that link. Now I actually input this number earlier, but I'm just showing you how to check it or how to change it. If I got a lower quotation of materials, I would input that, I would change the number here. Again, you can see how you can input into any section here quoted materials. I'm going to save and close to close the window there. Click Save Close to save my work. The recap added taxes to the materials quoted and displays the total as $11,734. Before I continue describing the recap, I want to show one more item. Below the header is a button that says Edit Items. I'll click the Edit Items button. Rhino navigates you to a new page. It's actually the same page. It just opens dialog where you can make some changes, more finite. I won't make the changes here, but just show you how to use the feature. Here it allows you to change the crew composite rate in each section. See how the boxes are open here? Let me circle this real quick. The program opens dialog or opens the boxes to the right there that allows you to set up your crew composite rate different in each section if you want. Same with general foreman hours. It allows you to input those. This is where you input your superintendent labor hours if you want to input for that. Again, this is where you drill in and make more finite changes on the recap. Near the bottom, you can make more changes to the markup for specific items for each section. For more information on adjusting the markup, watch the training video, How to Be More Competitive Using the Recap. This video explains how to make finite changes in the recap so your bids are more competitive. See here, you can change the markup on any item in any section here. Also at the very bottom, if you want to just add other dollars, you can throw in dollars very quickly right here in the other category. Over to the right here, in any of these boxes, if you just type in dollars, the recap will add those to your total estimate. You can make real quick additions here of dollars. Next, I'll click Save Items to save the work. Now moving on with the description on the left-hand side, below the materials group is the labor group. First is crew composite rate. When the crew composite rate is set in the header, it sets that labor rate in each section. You can see each section shows $38 as a crew rate, which is the program's considering that your labor cost per hour. You can see that was set up at the top under crew composite rate in the header, so it transferred it to each section. There it is in the header. Next in the labor group is crew labor hours, which shows 452.05 hours. The crew labor hours shown as a result of adding materials in each section of the estimate as seen in sessions 1 and 2 of this training videos. Next on the list is other labor hours. I previously input hours in the other labor hours categories. Other labor hours shows 29 hours. I click on the link, see what was input. You can see how I input other labor hours in 2 different sections there. Some in the horizontal station section. And then further down there it displays 16 hours for mobilization in outside plant. Again, the amounts are for example only, but this is how you make quick changes in the recap. Anything again underlined is a link that you can open and make changes. Next is general foreman hours. The recap shows 36.16 hours. If you remember in the header, the general foreman rate was set at $40 per hour. And I set the general foreman percent at 8%. What Red Rhino does is it takes that 452 hours times 8% and adds those hours in the general foreman category. In this example, it added an additional 36.16 general foreman hours. Again, these numbers are for example only. The program takes the crew labor hours times 8% and adds additional general foreman hours. Now, you do this to cover your supervision. Oftentimes your supervision isn't billable hours, so you add additional hours for that. Then in the labor category, next is total labor hours. There, I'll circle it there. See how the program shows there's 517.21 hours total. And to the right you see in each section how many hours there are in each section. Now it's important to monitor, measure, and look at how many hours you have in a project. It's important to know. Next is labor dollars. Red Rhino converts labor hours to labor dollars, which is the cost of labor for the project. The categories include crew labor dollars. Here, let me highlight it. Crew labor dollars, other labor dollars, general foreman labor dollars, superintendent labor dollars, and finally total labor dollars. And then the total labor dollars in this example estimate are 18,624. That would become your labor budget should you win this project. That's how much that you have in the estimate for your labor cost. Next, going down the list is expenses. Now, I will not click the link to show what was input because I've already done so in other links in the recap, but if you click on that link, you'll see what expenses were added. Total is $1,700. You can see where there were expenses added for each section. This is how you input the expenses like permit fees, etc., rental equipment. Same goes for subcontracts. It has a link that can be opened. You see that there's $550 in subcontracts. Now this is an example of how what I jokingly refer to as the Red Rhino talks to you. The recap rather talks to you. The recap here is showing you the numbers that you have in the estimate. Next is the UPA group. UPA stands for Unit Price Assembly. Let me highlight that. I won't go into detail on UPA, but I'll have further training on that in the future. Next is prime cost. This is a very important number to understand. Red Rhino totals all costs in the entire estimate and displays that total as the prime cost here. The prime cost in your project is the budget if you win the project. In this example, the prime cost is $32,668. Now, if you went back and added more materials, that prime cost would change, of course. Next is your percentages here. We set up 10 and 10. The program's going to mark up 10% overhead and 10% profit. Here we see a detailed list of those percentages added. Then here is your total overhead and profit. Now, this is what's in it for you. This is the markup of the estimate. The program takes the prime cost and marks it up, in this case 10 and 10, for $6,860. Again, that's what's in the project for you if you win the project. Below the total overhead and profit is subtotal. Again, it's adding everything together there, $39,529. Next, the Rhino displays the bond cost in here. Again, I added 2.5% in the header above. The program took the subtotal times that at 2.5% and shows you $988 is your bid cost. Finally, here's your total price, $40,517 for the entire project. Now, this is the amount that will be transposed to the proposal. I'll show you that in a minute. Now, once you've completed your estimate and adjusted the recap, it's time to create a proposal. Prior to creating a proposal, I recommend you view the video called Setting Up Red Rhino. That video shows you how to download your company logo so it appears on all your proposals. It also shows you where and how to input customer contact information that populates to the proposal. Now on to the proposal. To create a proposal, I click on the Proposal/RCO button. It takes me to a window that allows me to select a customer. I click the arrow to the right to select a customer. Next, Red Rhino starts out with a sample customer in here. This is where you input your customer information. I click on the sample company and Rhino populates the customer information to the proposal. Next, I'll fill in the information at the bottom, starting with the project description. Type in structured cabling project here, maybe an address. It's very important to fill in the plan and specification information accurately. There may be several versions of the plans, and you don't want to make it, or let me say it this way, you want to make it very clear what plans you're bidding here. I'll type in plans dated here, 7/30/11. Next, click the Save button there. And once you've created the proposal, it's time to add inclusions, exclusions, and qualifications. I'm going to click the Edit button at the top. I'm going to start with inclusions. I'll select Edit Inclusions. The program shows no inclusions were found for structured cabling here. Now there's two different ways I can enter inclusions. 3 buttons at the right, New, Select from Default, and Back. First, I'm going to click the New button. Click the New button. It opens a dialog box here where I can type in a description of an inclusion. I'm just going to type in price includes the following here and save it. This will go on the proposal later. Once I save it, it'll go on the proposal. Now the other way to input inclusions is to click Select from Defaults. I'll do that here. You'll see a list of inclusions here. You simply check the inclusions you want to include. I want to mention something here. Rhino is an estimating software program for both electrical and structured cabling. So in this list of exclusions, or rather inclusions, you'll see both included here, both inclusions for electrical and for structured cabling. You just, again, you check on the box of the one you want to include. And just click Import Selected button at the top right once you get all of them included. Here we go. Click Import Selected. Now this is the list that gets transposed to the proposal. We'll look at that in a minute. Right now I want to explain that there are certain items here that show NA, or not applicable, in the parentheses here. These are boxes typically where you type in quantities. In this case I'm going to type in a quantity of 2. I'll click Save, and I'll go on to the next one. There's another one here that has where I need to add the quantities in parentheses. I'll edit that and save it. Next, we'll click on the back button, go back to the proposal. Next, I would do exclusions. As I explained earlier, inclusions, exclusions, and qualifications work essentially the same. I click on the Edit button at the top, select Edit Exclusions. I'm going to click the Select from Defaults button. Again, I just check the exclusions that I want to have on the proposal. Next, I click the Import Selected to select those items, and they'll end up on the proposal. Again, qualifications work the same here. Let me go back to the proposal. Qualifications work the same. You just click the Edit button, Edit Qualifications, select from the list, and input them. They end up on the proposal. I won't demonstrate how to input qualifications, but I'll show you the results of it. I'll scroll down here, and here's all the inclusions, exclusions, and qualifications. And at the very top there, you can see the line items there with different pricing for different sections. Now, if you don't want to show the pricing for each section in an estimate, and you only want to show one number, you do the following. I'll demonstrate how to show one price on the proposal here. First, I'm going to return to the recap, so I'll click on the recap button. Now later I'm going to type the total number in the recap. In this example it's $40,517. I would write that number down. It's going to disappear here for a minute. Then I click on the Edit Items button at the top. I scroll down to the bottom. At the far left there's a description checkbox to exclude from total. I'm going to go across and check each of these boxes to exclude these from the total. Check them all. Then I click Save Items. After excluding the sections from the total, we'll go back to the proposal here. There we go. After excluding the sections from the total, we see on the proposal on the left-hand side a small I. And we read that it says this line item is excluded from the estimate. Its line total is not included in the total price. It will be removed and when the total is synchronized. Next, I'll synchronize a proposal. I click the Synchronize button at the top of the page. When the Synchronize button is clicked, it takes us to a page that says Synchronize Line Items. Then it displays the name of the estimate, name of the customer. Below that, it says Current Line Items for Proposal. In other words, when I synchronize, the number at the bottom with the total and the sections is how it looks now, but when I synchronize, the information at the top will be on the proposal. In other words, all the stuff on the bottom, the different sections, is going to be removed from the proposal. Next, I'll click the Synchronize button at the top right of the screen. Now next, I'm going to create a new line item and show one price of $40,517. The number that I wrote down that was displayed on the recap. So I click the Edit button at the top left of the proposal. It displays a drop-down. I click on the New button. I click on Edit Line Items. Click the New button at the right there. I'll type in a description. I'm just going to say Total Price. And in the amount box, I type in the total price of the estimate. Again, it was $40,517. I click Save. Brings us back to the proposal here. There we go. Click back to the proposal. Now you see that the total price is $40,517, just displaying one total price. Oftentimes you'll want to make these changes on your recap when you have multiple sections. You don't have to display all the pricing. Now this is the view of what the completed proposal looks like with inclusions, exclusions, and qualifications. I click Preview here. This is what the proposal looks like when you're completed. And if you've downloaded your logo, it would appear at the top. You see the red Rhino logo at the top. That's where your logo would end up. Now, if you want to fax this to your customer, you just use the print options online, print this out, and fax it to your customer. Or you can email it. I usually email it. Click on the email button. Just type in the email address of who you're sending it to. Now, I highly recommend also that you carbon copy yourself. Always send yourself a copy of this, and then you can send it out in the future to other people, and type in a message to your customer if you desire. I usually send them PDF at the top. Again, always carbon copy yourself, and that way you'll get an email. With this, we conclude our training session on Red Rhino. In this session, we covered how to use Red Rhino and how to create a professional proposal. Again, Structured Cabling Part 3, Recap and Proposal. This is John Kelsey saying goodbye for now. Thanks for joining me in this session of Red Rhino Academy.